Well, I feel so alone doing this remote. I'm used to doing sessions live, so I'll try not to ramble on too much. Thank you for attending my session. I'll be talking about migrating to .NET MAUI. I will, however, not do a step-by-step how to migrate to .NET MAUI because you're probably already on that journey if you're not done with it. And if you want to have a step-by-step walkthrough, you'll find plenty online. There's also a book. I wrote one book on the topic, but there are other books as well. I don't know if you watched the other session. It seems like there are several speakers at the .NET conference that has like an A-Press book behind them. So I don't know if it was a requirement to speak at this conference, but yes, I'm an author. I write books, nonfiction, technical nonfiction, and also fiction. And I have a dream job as an app developer at Plaid. Now, Plaid is a company that provides smart home solutions and smart home lighting. And I have several here, like when I work from home, I have so many things here that I need to use for development. It's what we have is everything from lights to the modules that you have in the wall where you have light switch and so on. And we have about 30 plus unique products, and then each product has variations of it. So this is not like a sort of like sales commercial of any sort. I just want to explain sort of the scale of the problem we were facing. We have approximately 3 million users and more than 7 million installed devices. These are old numbers I found, so I don't know where we are at now. When we do our testing, we test on over 40 different phones and tablets. So we have extensive automated and also manual testing, all kind of testing. I'm actually working, like the testing team we're working with is the largest one I've ever worked with, and they do a lot of fantastic work. My team opted out of having our group photo, so you have to deal with the stick figures instead, but that's the team. The app team consists of 15 people. I'm pretty sure you can find me as the only woman on the team. But yeah. All right, let's just jump straight in because I have a lot of things that I want to cover. So when we started migrating, we started quite early. We started in 2023, I believe. Yes, that's when we created the Slack channel, at least. So probably a couple of weeks before that, we started looking into it seriously. We had been discussing it for quite a while, for at least half a year. And we knew that we are going to need a lot of time. Because worst case scenario, you finish the migration early, but nobody is upset if you deliver early. But if you deliver late, we might end up not being able to push updates to the store that needs to get out immediately. So we had the pressure from the Apple Store, and we also have the pressure from Android. And now Android gave us a little bit more leeway, and as you'll see throughout the session, we have been prioritizing iOS, not only because Android was much harder to migrate than iOS, but also because we had more time with Android, and we're very thankful for that. Some of the challenges we had that also led to us starting migrating really early was that we weren't able to just put everything on hold and focus on migrating. So we have to have sort of like several branches going at the same time. So we have to maintain the old application, the Xamarin application. We had upcoming deadlines on product expansions. We plan our products 3 years in advance, but they might change at any time because we are agile after all. But we still have sort of like deadlines to meet because we are so many teams, like large teams, and if we don't have a deadline to work towards together, it's going to sort of be hard to meet up at the same time with the same things needed to sort of get the product out. So we had product expansion, a whole new line of products, the luminaries. So before, this is quite new, like a couple of years, the downlights, just lights in general. We have outdoor lights as well, and so on. These are new products that were coming out at the same time. A new product means a lot of work, and particularly with testing, and also working tighter with the firmware and hardware team, which also means that it's eating up more resources, not only in our team, but also other teams. At the same time, we also have new features to push out to the application, new capabilities, and of course, fix bugs, because there will always be bugs. And we thought that wasn't enough. So why not just add a facelift to the application at the same time? So we had 4 things going on at the same time: migrating, new product launches, the facelift, and also new features. So the only way to do this was to sort of split our team up, which I'll explain very soon. We did look into different alternatives for .NET MAUI because we were a bit uncertain about the maturity. It was super early on. A lot of people were complaining. A lot of people were pulling up like old Silverlight stories. Silverlight is dead, and so on. So of course, to be wise about it, we did look into alternatives just to feel like we could check those off, that we looked into it. So we looked into Uno, which at the time didn't have that collaboration they have with .NET MAUI, which they introduced now during the conference. Avalonia, Flutter, somebody made like a mock-up version of the app in Flutter, Ionic, and so on. But at the end of the day, and we knew it when we started looking into it, we would end up with .NET MAUI because that's where our knowledge is. We have a lot of Xamarin experts on our team. I don't know if I can call myself that, but we certainly have experts on our team in Xamarin, and also it's the same language, same libraries, the same tooling, and most important of all, like these different directions I was talking about, all these like parallel branches, not different directions, but parallel branches. It's much easier if it's the same language and sort of the same framework, because Xamarin.Forms is not that different from .NET MAUI, because .NET MAUI is sort of the next evolution of Xamarin.Forms, although got to rewrite a fair bit of code. I've written a lot of books on migration because I've done quite a few migrations. ASP.NET to ASP.NET Core was a favorite migration of mine. Yeah, I don't know why I keep doing that to myself. But I usually recommend these steps. In an ideal world, you do your analysis and you do an inventory of the things that require more work to migrate. Then you got all those in a spreadsheet. And because there's always this one weird person on the team that loves spreadsheets and knows all the Excel shortcodes, that person will make the perfect spreadsheet to have everything in. And you can use that spreadsheet for your planning and preparation. And when you have everything done, this sounds like homework. You can do the execution, which will go without any issues, and then some little post-migration polish and fix some minor bugs. It's not what we did. We jumped straight to execution. But there's a good explanation as to why. It was summer. We were all on summer vacation, except Johannes, because he chose to work during summer. And he also decided to start migrating to .NET MAUI. And by the time we came back from vacation, we all just like prayed that he'd be completely done with it. But he wasn't, but he got a lot of work done. Now, Johannes is the most senior developer on our team. He's been there since the beginning. So he has an inventory in his head. So that's sort of why we jumped straight to execution. And also we realized we're going to need a lot of time. We got to get started now. So the hard part, which is what I've talked about now, the first hard part we ran into is the logistics and timing of everything. The parallel maintenance, the deadlines, testing across so many different devices. If we have one bug and we have 7 million installations and then we have 3 million users, I don't know what the formula for this would be, but there's some sort of like square root or something here to calculate how this will multiply into a black hole if we messed something up. So we couldn't afford messing anything up, which also means we need to coordinate with other teams. And also the .NET MAUI application that we migrate will also has also must be backwards compatible. So we also need to test that aspect. So there's a lot of testing going on. And what we learned from all of this is that the 80-20 rule exists and it's very real. So 80% of the migration is going to go quite easy. It's just a lot of renaming, changing dependencies, and just tedious work that is sort of boring. But then you have the last 20%, 1%, we're talking about the UI and Android, that is going to take up as much time as the 80%, if not more. So we spent maybe a couple of months migrating to .NET MAUI and getting to the first green build. And then we spent a couple of years fixing all the minor issues or all the other issues. So what we did is we split up the team. It's quite a luxury to have a big team, but we split up the team. We have the UX team, which is always the UX team, Jimmy and Joel. They do fantastic work. They were focused on the current application. And Roger, who was tasked with building a new UI builder. All our UI is written in code in C#, not in XAML. And we have this sort of like builder that we use to create all our pages and we have our own concept of a grid and rows, or cards and rows, we refer to them as. So he created a new one that would work both on Xamarin as well as .NET MAUI. Then we had the MAUI team. I was on the MAUI team, and then a couple of others. And then we had 2 teams that would deal with new products and new features. And then in green, the master merger. We keep punishing Johannes, but he and I believe Max was involved as well with this to merge everything new that is added in the Xamarin application to the .NET MAUI application. It's not a fun job. You got to really love your workplace to have that as your sort of full-time job. But yeah, we had one person dedicated to do that, which I highly recommend if you're going to do parallel branches. So the goals were pretty straightforward. Make it build, be able to log in, see a couple of views. Then we can enable the tests again and make sure those are green. And then make sure that we have all the base functionality. We can open all the pages and the important dialogues. And once we have this sort of like stable foundation with minor things, then we'll use this as our main branch. Well, talking about more about the initial phase of the migration, that was also the hard part. Well, more hard part because we had to change from a multi-project to a single project, which wasn't what we wanted at the beginning. And I know you're looking at our branches there in the beautiful colors, rainbow colors, and you're thinking, this is the most fantastic branching strategy I've ever seen in my life. This is real life branching. This is how it looks like, and it works for us. But as you can see, we have a lot of parallel branches that we need to be able to manage. So when we, and I say we, but it was mainly Johannes, started migrating .NET MAUI, we did so as a multi-project, but we just couldn't get it to build. We kept getting AOT errors, and this can depend on a lot of things. It could be trimming that has removed some assemblies that you need, or you have double references somewhere, or just random error, or who knows. We spent a lot of time looking into it until we decided, you know what, we're going to stop fighting against the new architecture and accept .NET MAUI as it is, which is meant to be a single project because it better represents the concept of a single project targeting multiple platforms. And in the beginning, we all struggled with this because we like to have things separate. But I think now that we've gotten used to it, we wouldn't go back to the multi-project layout again. We did, however, lose our Git history when we moved to a single project, which is a real pain, in particularly as we merged in new products. So those new lines of code would be nice to actually have the Git history from the beginning. But that's what happens. And our lesson was, don't get stuck, pivot early. If you run into a major issue and it's eating up a lot of time, don't try to force it to work. Look into alternatives and pivot early, because you can really get stuck on one idea and it's not going to work. And I know a lot of other teams that had similar problems, other companies with multi-project and a single project. So I usually always exclusively recommend the single project structure, almost. So some of the changes when you migrate, you use the upgrade assistant. The stuff the upgrade assistant does is stuff you need to do manually otherwise, and you still need to do a lot of manual work. So you might as well let it go to town and do a lot of stuff for you. It'll go ahead and migrate some namespaces and update for dependencies and restructure the project, and also to update the project files and a few more things. But then you need to dive in and you need to do a lot of namespace corrections, which if you have some nice refactoring tooling, we use Rider, so we use that to help with renaming. Find replace works really well. And that same person who loves spreadsheets and Excel is also the same person who loves regex. So you could even use that. But commit early. So you can always sort of like step back if something goes wrong. So yeah, refactoring tooling, regex search and replace helps a lot. You got to fix all your cross-platform paths and make sure that they work on both platforms or all the platforms you're targeting. Update packages, replace some packages. We don't have a lot of external dependencies, so that was really easy for us. But I know it's a pain point for some other applications that are reliant on third-party dependencies that have not been migrated to .NET MAUI. But we didn't have that issue, thankfully. And also some minor code cleanup. And yeah, moving to the new structure. All in all, 3,000 files changed, lines added, lines deleted. If you want to do something really fun, if you have Cloud Code, you can give it like a hash code for a commit and then ask it to summarize what happened in that commit. And that's what I did, sort of get the stats for some of the changes. So hard part number 3. Renderers, which are now referred to as handlers because they handle UI. So the renderers, you're always going to have more renderers than you think you have. We didn't do an inventory, but I have done an inventory of a fitness application I have, and it looks something like this. So if you do an inventory, this is the spreadsheet somebody loves, but everybody else hates. You have your category, component, current usage, MAUI equivalent, and some nodes. We didn't do that, but we would have needed several pages or tabs for renderers because we had quite a few. What happens is, like, when you run into like some issue in Xamarin, you just quickly wire up a new renderer and then you forget about it, and then like 5 years later, you migrate to MAUI and you go like, what does this even do? So we had quite a few. Now you can have something called shimmed renderers. It doesn't give you full API access, but basically lets you reuse some of your old renderers as is without migrating them to handlers. But I don't recommend that. Just stick to the new architecture and the new patterns, which is the handler pattern, and re-architect your renderers to handlers. And when you do that, make sure that you take a look at what's already existing. If you can just sort of like extend an existing mapper, that's much better than actually writing out the whole new handler. Now, the architecture and the lifecycle differs. You'll find plenty of information of that online. So it's a lot of work, and also debugging handlers is not as straightforward as debugging any sort of like backend code for an application. So it eats up a lot of time. So try to remove the ones that you don't absolutely need while you're at it. That's what we learned. Do an inventory and embrace the new pattern, which we did. And we talked about the shimmed renderers. Now, there's also the compatibility package. And I know this was promoted really heavily early on. It wasn't heavenly, that's what I'm getting to. I'm going to get in trouble for this. But it was promoted a lot in the beginning. That, oh, we also have the compatibility package. So it makes it easier for you. Well, you know what? It didn't make it easier for us. Maybe we did something wrong, but we added a compatibility package very early on before Roger started working on this new UI builder, because we wanted to keep all our relative layouts and our stack layouts, and we didn't want to change all that, and we want to be able to build quite fast. So to speed things up, we added a compatibility package. And in the beginning, it looked like it worked. And then we started running into issues because it wasn't compatible with other things. So while it added compatibility for some aspects, it added incompatibility for other aspects. So it's sort of like whack-a-mole, keep whacking, but a new thing pops out. So we ended up removing the compatibility package and looking over our layout and rebuilding them. And again, embrace .NET MAUI and don't try to force Xamarin on .NET MAUI. And with the new UI builder that worked on both, with just some minor changes for .NET MAUI, that made the work much, much easier for us. But we lost a lot of time trying to sort of force it in the beginning. And we've been talking about layout. So I said the 80-20 rule when it comes to UI, and in particularly when it comes to Android, because Android is what gave us most issues. And I do believe if you look at the MAUI repository and you look at the Android tags, you'll find that Android has a whole lot more issues than iOS, because Android is special. It has different implementations. So there's a lot of US level bugs to handle. From different providers. So it's not easy. I don't envy the team that has to deal with all that. But the UI is what we've spent most time, tears, blood, sweat on, because there's a lot of differences. And you'll find a really good list online in the Microsoft documentation on the UI differences, in particular for layouts, but also controls. But one of the things is like you have new defaults, which are 0 basically. But before, Android would have its own defaults like 4 or 6 and so on, which means that you have to go in and add some manual padding, and also managing safe area, which now is much easier in .NET MAUI, latest version of .NET MAUI. There are also a lot of platform differences. After all, there are different layout engines underneath it all. So you have to do testing. And if you test on the emulator, I mean, is it even an emulator? Yes, it is, but because it is a virtual machine in the background, that's the definition of an emulator. But at the same time, you can't really test on different Android OS implementations. So that means if you're not testing on all the different physical devices, you're going to not notice some of the bugs. For example, Galaxy with the API level 13 had a particular bug in the first few builds of that API that basically rendered the shadows like as really harsh shadows without any blur. And we spent a lot of time trying to fix that until we decided, you know what, we're just gonna we'll let the user update their phone, okay? But things like that is hard to manage. And if you choose to manage it, it's going to eat up a lot of time. .NET MAUI is not going to handle all the minor differences underneath it all because it's not realistic. What we learned from this, except from shadows, and we have 36 merge requests only on shadows, and I believe I've done 2/3 of those. And we've had issues with shadows even before .NET MAUI. We had this in Xamarin as well. And despite having shadow now in .NET MAUI, we still have to manually handle shadows for some of our more special custom controls that we have. What we learned from this was you got to set a lot of time for this and be prepared to move things a millimeter, a pixel here, a pixel there. The UI is going to eat up most time out of everything. And you have to test on physical devices. There's no going around it. You have to have a a collection of physical devices that you test on. Don't rely on the emulator. Never do that. And also specify the layout values explicitly. It will also help in the future if you do so. And obviously you want to unify that in a style and have everything in one place and also like sprinkled throughout the project as magic little numbers. Number 6, the last hard part I'm going to cover is performance. So we were so excited going to .NET MAUI because like things are going to get so fast now, like woo, we were ready. And it was faster in the beginning, but then it regressed because turns out that nesting tons of grids and stack layouts is not the best idea, and also nesting gesture recognizers, so you're triggering these layout changes and sort of let it bubble up through the tree. Yeah, that's not ideal. So we actually had a regression in performance, which we did not expect. And at first we were very quick to blame .NET MAUI, but turns out we hadn't read the documentation properly, where it explicitly says to use the right layout and the right controls for the right things. And now that we are wiser, we're also much faster. And that fast person on that slide is me, Stockholm Marathon this year. Any opportunity I get to brag about running that marathon, I'll use it. So yeah. What we learned from performance is also that profiling was really tricky 2 years ago. And what we did, and I think this is pretty cool, like Pontus, I believe, in our team, we have a developer version of our application where it has like a developer menu. And you can go in this developer menu, you can select to sort of build an in-app inside the app, and you use this UI builder to add new cards and rows and sort of build like a fake page and get performance output on that. So instead of actually implementing it and then doing profiling, you can sort of test a little bit ahead before implementing. And that's actually really, really neat. I like that. Now, profiling has become a little bit easier. So I'm very thankful for that, but it's something you want to do quite early on. Even though .NET is getting faster and faster, you can still mess things up on the dev side. So don't rely on the changes in the language and the framework for performance. Don't rely on just that. So lesson learned from that, except besides read documentation, obviously, MAUI rewards clean layouts and early profiling, which seems sort of like given. There's so much more I could talk about, and I'm already talking super fast, so I won't be able to cover more. But I'll give some honorable mentions to effects, which are now behaviors. They're cleaner now, but you have to redesign those. And working with touch is also a bit different. Theme management has changed and it's easier to work with, but keep in mind that if you change your controls inside the handler, it's not going to automatically apply the new theme when the theme changes. So you got to make sure that you actually manage that inside the handler as well. If you change the color, for example. Navigation, we had some issues, but most of all, more because we have our own implementation of navigation. We have our own navigation concept that is very specific to our application. App Center obviously was retired, so we had to find a replacement for that quite early on. 1/3 of the team, or some people in the team, were using Visual Studio for Mac, so they had to adjust to a new development environment, Visual Studio Code or Rider. And we've had a lot of problems anytime we've had to update Xcode and the Xcode tooling. Not as much when we're updating our MAUI workloads, but it's definitely been a challenge. All in all, the takeaway is 3 things to remember. Plan for reality and not like ideal conditions. It's going to seem really easy in the beginning, but the last bits is going to take more time than anything else you've done so far. And it's an evolution, not a retrofit. Adapt as soon as you can to the new way of thinking and the new architecture and patterns, and it will make it much easier moving forward.